Little. All right, guys, I don't know if anybody's, let me check our sound. We'll get started in just a second. Let me just make sure we're good to go. Hope everyone had a good Thanksgiving. It's hard to believe it's already December. Let me see here. Let's see if we've got sound. I had one instance where I did a whole thing of, whole stream, and none of it had sound, and that was frustrating. All right, anyway, we'll be started in 1 minute. All right, be right back. We have sound. How you feeling today, Kevin? Coach Kevin?
I'm okay.
You're okay?
A little tired.
Absolutely phenomenal.
A little tired.
A little tired.
I don't know why. I took a nap today.
We all know what would help with that.
No, thank you.
Speaking of our current debate, should we share our, not debate, our discussion?
Which one? We have like 3 going on.
We have 3 going on. Today's debate, Lachlan Giles versus Gordon Ryan. I don't know if you know. Let me fix the camera.
Is it wrong to do steroids?
Is it wrong? Not if you have a medical need for steroids.
So sometimes it's wrong. There's a spectrum of wrong.
If you have no medical need for steroids, then it is wrong.
Define medical need. What if I need to be really strong?
That's not a medical need.
But medically.
That's not a medical need.
What if I'm not really strong? Some really big guy's gonna break my elbows.
But only if I enter this contest.
But only, yes, in this very weird context that I put myself in.
Well, no. I would say medically necessary means like a real doctor decides that you have a pressing medical need for steroid.
What if
treatment.
I do the competition, the guy breaks my arms?
Maybe,
and
yes.
Then the doctor says I could get some steroids.
Yes, then it's okay.
Then it's fine.
Because it didn't help you in that contest.
Alright, what if during the course of my recovery I happened to get like a 10% strength gain that I otherwise wouldn't have gotten? That's okay?
I think there was some thinking back when Lance Armstrong was still considered to be like an honorable and honest person, that he can, because he had cancer, that his treatment for cancer somehow benefited him, inadvertently, which he of course vehemently denied at the time.
But prove it. Prove that it didn't. You can't.
Right.
Maybe you can.
But
you could show maybe with statistics that it didn't help, but he got cancer, he took steroids, he recovered, he got really strong. How do you separate what part of the work was him?
Well, let's just say that was a theory that was never tested. But it was, one of those things that I think his management encouraged as like maybe that's the reason he got better. If by accident, purely coincidentally, he gained some sort of advantage just because he had cancer. You can't really blame the guy for trying to recover from cancer.
So you're trying to say that maybe Gordon Ryan has a medical history that we don't know if that would...
That's certainly... I'm not accusing first of all, I'm not accusing anyone of anything. I don't know anything.
The idea of Gordon Ryan. Gordon Bryan.
Borden. Yeah, but you know, Lachlan, I think, is on his Instagram saying, for those of you who don't follow the soap opera, the drama on Instagram, you know, Lachlan came out and said something about anyone who is on PEDs should surrender their medals. And you know, the funny thing to me was that Gordon didn't respond with a denial. He basically said, "Stop being so bitter because you're not that good. Maybe you should do more steroids like everyone else." Which maybe he meant sarcastically, but it sounds like not exactly a denial, right?
I mean, would you consider Gordon Ryan to be part of the group of everyone else, of the people who aren't Lachlan Giles?
You know, I'm not here to weigh in on this debate one way or the other.
No, but logically,
you know, in terms of like individuals who, I will just say that I have never heard, you know, none of these guys, I'm not going to pick on any individual, but none of these guys usually, I haven't heard anyone who comes out and just flat out denies it. Denies. They may not, they'll dance around it a little bit, but I've never heard anyone be like, "No, I'm not, I never have, I never will. You know, I know I look like I do."
It's a coincidence.
But, you know, I'm totally 100% clean and I'll go and get tested right now.
Yeah.
You know?
It's still like, yeah, that's one of the weird things about jiu-jitsu culture, I think. Because, like, I feel that it's a known thing that happens, but it's still very taboo to even admit to doing it. Like, the closest you'll get is dancing around from anyone, even if they're from a place where it's relatively acceptable, or could be seen as. I don't know. What do you think the consequences would be for, like, a top-level jiu-jitsu athlete?
Well, I mean, you have a lot of guys who have been popped for, and, you know, and they get 2-year bans from IBJJF, you know, so if that's where you compete, you know, that it could be sponsorship. Some people may, you know, some sponsors may actually care about that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So it could be sponsorships, it could be seminars, you know, like if you have been popped, you know, maybe somebody doesn't want to bring you in for a seminar now.
Well, because that's the thing, the underlying idea of jiu-jitsu has been historically like, this is the sport for the weaker man. This is if you know your technique, you know, you shouldn't need these steroids.
But that's, you know, there's a difference. It's actually a good point, because there's a difference between, and I say this a lot, there's a difference between the people who compete, you know, and well, here, going back just for a second to the idea of the repercussions, you know, a lot of these athletes, you know, the way they make their money is by doing seminars before or after the tournaments that they go to.
For the regular folk.
Well, for the everyday, at the regular academies. And they charge to make it a couple $1,000.
Yeah.
You know, for 2 or 3 academies before they go compete at Worlds or Pans or Houston Open.
Yeah.
But if you're not competing,
yeah,
then that seminar money dries up for you.
Yeah.
And that could be a real thing, you know. It's an awkward situation to have somebody come in and be like, "Hey, how come you're not competing?" And you're like, I got banned.
Yeah.
So there's real money involved. But what I was going to say was, you know, like 2%, I mean, I don't know, it's a tiny percentage of jiu-jitsu athletes actually compete.
Yeah.
In a really meaningful way, you know, meaning, you know, you're even in the top 10 of the rankings of your division, or 20, you know. There are people who go and go to a couple tournaments a year and can do even well, you know, at a particular tournament, especially the smaller tournaments, the regional places, right? Because it's just not as big a tournament or a turnout.
Yeah. But even that, man.
But I mean, I don't know that there's a point for people, just for average, every day, to be training in a manner that necessitates PEDs, right? Like, I understand the temptation or the perceived necessity to do something that helps you recover when you know all of your competition is training like 2 times, 3 times a day, 6, 7 days a week. And, you know, if that's what you think you need to train to keep up, then, you know, the pressure to you know, do PEDs
can be high.
I think
But
also,
you know, like how many people actually train like that? Very few people.
you.
What's that?
I was thinking, like, you also don't want to be the guy, the only guy going into the competition with that idea in the back of their mind that, like, maybe I'm the only guy here who's not on performance-enhancing drugs. You know, and if you're on something, you walk in like, you know, this is going to be my tournament because I know I've got at least, like, everything I can do in my favor, right? Versus the guy who, you know, there's a little bit of doubt. He hasn't done everything he could have done. And that confidence will give an athlete.
You know, Lachlan Giles, I think, has the response to that, which is,
Be really good.
look, I mean, at some point, there's diminishing returns to that.
Yes.
I mean, you can overtrain, you can displace your confidence in your own technique with, you know, just your physical ability.
I can do this because I'm on drugs.
Or just feeling like you're saying, like, oh, I have this sense of confidence because I don't get tired,
Yeah.
right? And I recover really fast. As opposed to really developing skill.
And the skill that you can use in the long term.
And the one thing I will say, and not weighing in on anybody, is that the people who win invariably are very skillful. You know, like,
Of course.
you know, you look at anybody, I'm not picking out anyone, but anyone in Abu Dhabi who wins their division is incredibly skillful.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think that anyone can say that, hey, this person only won because perhaps they were on PEDs, you know? You know, the level of competition is too high for, you know, for anyone to just get by. And, you know, you see that. You see a lot when Giles winning third place in absolute. The level is so high that, assuming that he is clean,
Yeah.
he's able to defeat some of the best guys in the world who, by his accusation, not mine, are at least accused of, you know, participating in some illegal activities. But I think jiu-jitsu is not different than any other sport in this regard. You know, I think the pressures to do PEDs, you know, almost universal.
I don't know, it's just one of those things where, you know, most of the athletes are like, in order to be the best and be the top of the thing, you know, you've got to do everything you can. And then the individual person has to decide if PEDs are in that category of things. Is that
Well, I
everything
think this
can
is
do?
what gets to the idea of why we were talking before about why is it unfair. And, you know, it's not something that is without consequences or risks, you know. You know, steroids, especially if they're abused, and I don't know how many jiu-jitsu athletes are actually taking steroids under a doctor's close supervision.
Yeah.
They are dangerous, especially when you combine them with other drugs. If you overdo them, you know. So I'm not just, if I'm an athlete who has to think about these things, I'm not just thinking about is this going to help me or not? It's also I have to weigh it against a future, you know, consequence, which is, do I get cancer? Do I get any of these people get stomach issues, diverticulitis or something.
Yeah.
You know, like there's all sorts of conditions that can occur because you're taking these things and you're not being monitored like you would if you were under a doctor's supervision. And so as an athlete, or as a coach, you have to worry about like real health consequences. And at the end of the day, very few people are getting paid enough money to make that risk financially. Look, if I'm a professional baseball player and I have a guaranteed contract for $100 million, you know, or I'm going to make a couple more $1 million because I extend my career, like that makes financial sense, right? I have a lot of money. But I'm just a jiu-jitsu athlete, you know?
Yeah, but like if jiu-jitsu is the only thing you do, and this is the only outlet or like your ability to kind of show who you are and what you can do and make your name for your career, you know?
Yeah,
Like it
I
might
understand,
be,
but that
worth
is
the risk.
a bad choice. It's a bad choice, right? Like that's like, hey, the only way I can make a name for myself is to engage in incredibly risky behavior. in an obscure activity,
Yeah.
then why?
But like-
That doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
But you can never eliminate the existence of those people.
No,
Where like they're on that fringe, where it might actually be worth the risk. And also the problem is, you see evidence of where it is successful for individuals. Where
Yes.
like because they were able to get to the top.
Yes.
It was a contributor to their success.
Yes.
Like, and
Well, here's the
there's-
thing.
there aren't a lot of examples anymore besides like Lachlan Giles where you can be clean and you can be successful at the top.
Mikey just came out and said, you know, and I believe him. I mean, I think there are a lot of clean athletes.
There are.
I think as you go up the weight divisions,
Yes.
the temptations, because the strength is, I mean, strength always matters, but as you go up higher and higher, I think it matters more and more.
Well, I think
Yes,
the likelihood of a person using PEDs will naturally get higher
I
as
don't
the
know if
person.
that's true.
It would, because
Strength is important at every level.
Yeah, but PEDs make people heavy.
No, it's not just strength either, right?
It's heavy.
There are other things that you can do. They're not just steroids. Like I say, take PEDs. There can be other things where if I can go full speed
Yeah.
for 10 minutes, I'm gonna have an advantage over someone who gets tired.
Yeah, and
So I
PEDs
can take certain PEDs, even certain steroids, that will help me have a better endurance as opposed to just strength.
Yeah, but my point is like, how many PEDs make you smaller generally? Or their point
Yeah.
is to make you lighter.
Well, they make you stronger for your weight.
Yeah,
right?
but in general,
Your strength
like,
to weight ratio should
PEDs
go.
like build the person, make a person bigger. So as you go into groups of bigger people, I think you'll find higher instances of PEDs.
I don't know.
Because of
That seems like a reasonable hypothesis to me. Yes. But I think, you know, you also, look, as I was saying before, we went on air here, or on stream, I don't know what the right term is. I guess it's not on air. You know, individual athletes will always have the temptation because there's a lot riding on things for them from their individual perspective.
Yeah.
Financially, prestige, those types of things, which are usually tied together anyway. But when you look at the sport as a whole, as and if the sport grows, the pressures to clean it up will increase. The testing is going to, you know, they talk about this forever. Jiu-jitsu in the Olympics, right? Jiu-jitsu becoming, you know, John was just talking about submission grappling becoming, you know, an actual almost independent sport. And you see this, you know, Eddie Bravo has been done a lot with UFC, you know, Fight Pass. But as this becomes more and more professionalized, you know, testing is going to become a lot more rigorous.
How do you feel about the idea that
And so my point was just, if you persist in, you know, encouraging people to do steroids or think competitors, I know this is a small percentage. If you persist in thinking or going about it as if, hey, we're always going to be good because we are able to do these things, it's a trap because at some point all of this stuff is going to come down.
market's going to crash?
And you know, if that's what your whole ethos has been, and you know, and what do you need for something to really look bad? I mean, I think it's a long. If you're a gym where there's a high incidence of PED, you know, it only takes one person to have cancer or, you know, some major health issue related to steroids
Yeah.
or PEDs, and then your whole program is going to suffer. You know.
What do you think about the idea that drug testing and PED testing actually favors larger organizations
Yeah.
because they'll be more capable of bypassing the testing process?
Absolutely, that's true.
So then, could one argue that facilitating and adding further drug testing could actually make the playing field more uneven?
I think that's true. You have to really be careful about, you know, having a truly independent drug testing regime that doesn't favor the bigger, more established programs. I mean, I think that's always right. Like that's part of the strength of jiu-jitsu is that we are not a truly organized sport.
But together we are stronger.
I don't know if that's true. Who says that? But you know, what I mean is like, you know, when you have a professional league, you know, there's a league office, and like all the teams are more or less. There's a charter, and everyone has agreed, at least in principle, to abide by the same rules.
Yes.
You know, in jiu-jitsu, we're all just a bunch of different associations and academies that are essentially independent.
Yes.
You know, none of us voted or agreed to IBJJF or any other organization being the rulemaking body or, you know, the official body of anything.
Yeah.
There is, in fact, no official body of jiu-jitsu. You know, I think IBJJF is de facto that.
Yeah.
But I didn't sign a contract with IBJJF.
You got a certificate from them, though?
That is true, but I didn't sign a contract with them.
Correct. But
You
you
know,
have
it's not
association.
like a bar exam. If I become a member of a state bar,
There's no
I
certificate.
agree that I will be subject to their rules. You know, and if I don't have a license or I'm not a member of the bar, I can't practice in the state courts without special permission.
This might be a little bit of a shift, but it kind of goes along, I think. But I've been hearing talk about, like Andrew Yang used to bring up making sure that all cops who were on the job were purple belts.
Yeah, right. I love it.
And just like thinking of how would you like set the laws for that? Like how would you decide, like define a purple belt?
Yeah.
Like set a standard for what a purple belt is that everybody could agree on. That wasn't in some way a little bit blurry, a little bit subjective.
And I think it's got to also be a specific type of training. It's not,
Not
you
just
know,
jujitsu.
for a police officer or someone in the military. You know, the skills that you need are probably very different than what your normal, you know, average everyday purple belt is by any measure. You know, just in terms of dealing with, you know, a lot of the risks that police officers deal with on a day-to-day basis. That, you know, we have a matted floor.
Yeah.
You know, police officers you're not going to have that, obviously. We're also dealing with rules. You know, we have rules we were talking about yesterday, unwritten rules,
Yeah.
and written rules in jiu-jitsu. You know, there's no rules. You know, for a police officer, at least as far as the people that they're dealing with, right? Like they obviously have rules that they should deal with, but you know, an individual person that they may be trying to talk to or apprehend or, you know, question, that person they didn't agree to any rules, right?
Yeah, but to train, you don't have to not have rules in order to become more effective at protecting yourself against people.
I think if you're going to train people to be police officers and use force effectively, but and humanely, I think is the idea. That a police officer will be able, at least trained to like control somebody without having to smash them necessarily, or hurt or kill them, whatever the scale of the force is.
Yeah.
If that point is to do that, then just normal jiu-jitsu training is not sufficient.
But like, wasn't that where did it go from? Like, because from my understanding, that was the original point of the creation of judo and jiu-jitsu. Was like we need to teach these people martial arts, but we also can't be messing up our students every day. So like, let's take out some of the more dangerous things that
Well, I mean, I think there's,
would hurt people.
you know, judo and jiu-jitsu we're not created for police officers as far as I know, for law enforcement purposes.
Yeah.
You know,
But it's still like it was meant to be more, I think, martial, right? It was.
Yes, but you know, like we don't generally, in the course of jiu-jitsu, we are teaching a tremendous amount of different techniques that we assume are necessary for someone to be a blue belt or a purple belt, and a certain level of skill with those techniques, right? A police officer doesn't need. I mean, don't get me wrong. Look, you could take probably a purple belt and very quickly teach them what they need to know, at least in principle and theory, or like how to be, how to use those skills in a police situation or law enforcement situation. What I'm trying to say is like, if I were just taking a police officer who maybe had been on the street, been on the job for a number of years, didn't have any martial arts training, and I was like, how do I get this guy up to a purple belt level? That will entail a different criteria than if the person just comes in and they're like a college student and they just want to like go and enter a few tournaments for fun and learn how to kind of defend themselves, you know?
I agree. I think what this does is it's a compromise between like, let's take something approximately close to what cops need for their training, and then let's not do all the work that would be required to make like a police program, and and just let them get this purple belt, like whatever that means, and then that will be better than nothing.
Yeah, I wouldn't agree with that. I don't think it's enough to take a police officer and then like put them in a gi and give them a belt and be
Well-
like, hey, you're gonna get 2 points for passing the guard, and you wanna sweep this person until you get your 2 points and do all. No, I mean it's got to be like focused on just like MMA, right? Like if someone came in, the skills that they need for MMA are different than what you would need to be an effective gi, tournament fighter. It's two different. You do punches and kicks and so many other different situations. There's a fence. There are different round structures. There are different point.
But wasn't the point system designed to create a value system for the positions that are relevant to fighting? Right? There's a reason that mount is 4 points. There's
Yes.
a reason that back control is 4 points.
Yes.
And with the point system, while it's not exactly the same training, you do give an idea of like what's important, what's preferable,
Yes,
like
absolutely.
what you should go for.
Absolutely,
And
but at the same time, we all know that there are all sorts of weird, illogical, and contradictory permutations of the rules,
Definitely.
and that are even people who've been training a long time don't always understand,
why. Yes.
and or exploit, to their benefit at a tournament.
Yes.
And so, I think this gets to another issue that I think about a lot, which is kind of like, have we gotten down to the point where, sport jiu-jitsu, and I love sport jiu-jitsu, and this
Yes.
isn't meant as any sort of indictment to sport, athletes, because they're awesome.
Mm.
But is it getting to the point where we've veered off,
Yes.
and different parts of the sport are going different ways,
Yes.
where it's losing a little bit of that original relevance? I mean, when I started jiu-jitsu, everybody, at least everybody that was I started with, they were interested in trying to learn how to fight.
Yes. Jiu-jitsu was for
It was
something.
for fighting.
Yeah.
Defending yourself, but fighting.
Yeah.
It was filled with cops and bouncers and,
Jiu-jitsu was a tool.
firefighters. It was a tool, exactly. Nobody that I ever met until much later was like, I joined to go and do jiu-jitsu tournaments.
Yeah.
You went to jiu-jitsu tournaments. If you go back, you see what the tournaments were like.
Yeah.
They were like savage. People were allowed to slam each other. You could wear whatever you wanted. You could be in a t-shirt. You could be in a full gi. You could be half pant. I mean, Eddie Bravo was famous for wearing pants and no shirt.
Yeah.
So
But people
it
started,
evolved over time into this, bi or trifurcated system, or where we have gi, no gi, MMA. And then I'm trying to think, and self-defense. So maybe there's even 4 different. In some academies, they focus almost entirely on self-defense.
Yeah.
They don't go to like the Torrance Academy.
Yeah. Well, that's their main thing.
That's their main thing, and they're incredibly successful. I don't mean this as a criticism. And there are some academies that are very well known as no-gi academies. There are academies that are known as MMA academies or MMA, and some MMA places are not even jiu-jitsu places. They're preeminent.
Yeah.
They're the top MMA places, and
That's interesting because I used to, when I think of everything that's in the group of jiu-jitsu, right? I used to first break it off into gi and no gi, right? And then from there you can create subcategories. But now there could be a one above that where it's like people who do jiu-jitsu for stuff outside of jiu-jitsu,
yeah,
right? Self-defense.
professionally.
I wanna get good at self-defense or professionally.
Mm-hmm.
I guess to
No, I mean as a police officer, or as a soldier, or as
Yeah.
a bodyguard,
To
or
be good at your job.
security. Like I have to deal with people in a physical way,
Yeah.
and I need to know some jiu-jitsu because that's I'm a bouncer. I need to put my hands on people.
And then you get the group of people, weirdos I like to call them, who do jujitsu to do jujitsu. They train jujitsu for the sake of
That's you and me.
beating jujitsu.
That's you and me,
people.
just because we love jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
There's no real point to our doing jiu-jitsu. I don't get into, I haven't gotten into any real altercations, knock on wood, in a long time.
There's
I'm still waiting for that culminating fight, Kevin. Hopefully I acquit myself well.
There's a word for that, where the purpose of doing something is to do it, and it's like autotelic.
Maybe. I don't know, that's a fancy word. I don't know all those words.
It's
Well,
like-
it dovetails well with what I was listening to today about Socrates and the ancient philosophers who the unifying thread was that they believed that philosophy was a good unto itself. That was a way of life.
Yeah.
So anyway, jiu-jitsu is our philosophy,
Yeah.
right? In
It's
the
a-
ancients, in the sense of the ancients.
It's a representation of itself, and everything, life, complicated systems.
Jiu-jitsu is life.
I think, I don't know, it's easy
Life
to think about jiu-jitsu and come up with metaphors and be able to apply.
But to the original point, it's like, and there's also a hierarchy, I would say, right? Like I think, and I don't know that anyone shares this or that many people share it anymore, that the fighters are the ones who are at the top of the heap.
Who keep the reasons pure for training, or who like?
Well, I mean, that to me was always the point of training, right? They were always the highest. It was fun. I ran into this guy, and I won't mention his name, but he's a pretty well-known fighter. He had a pretty long career. He's a jiu-jitsu black belt. And I was talking to him, and he was saying, when he was coming up, and he's probably about my age, maybe a little bit older. He's like, when he was coming, he's Brazilian. When he was coming up, the whole point was not to do jiu-jitsu, get your black belt, and then go for 10 world championships and just keep doing jiu-jitsu. The point was, come up through the ranks, get your black belt, and go turn pro and be an MMA fighter.
Yeah.
Like the whole point of the training was at the end of it, you would graduate on to go do MMA.
Yeah.
And I think, at least for me, you guys of my generation, I don't know how much I can speak for them, but I still think of the fighters as being the real standard bearers of the art. The whole point of jiu-jitsu, like from my perspective, from the beginning was I saw a guy fighting much larger, stronger guys, multiple, 3, 4 fights a night, beating each one of them with technique, right? I saw that, and I think a lot of people like me were inspired by it, right? Like, oh my God. And this, again, not to take anything away from any sport, jiu-jitsu champion, those guys are awesome and women are awesome, but when I see a Damian Maia or a Jacques Ray or, anyone, Hodger, anybody, Andre Galvao had a bunch of fights. So he just did a post about it, and he was like 5-2. Like, yeah, but he went out and he fought Gary Tonin. I still think the guys that go out and fight, they're putting more on the line because that's like really their health,
Yeah.
That to me is kind of the pinnacle of jiu-jitsu. You know what I mean? Like that practical application at MMA. MMA was the start to me, and it's also kind of the end. In terms of like the hierarchy, how I think of a hierarchy.
Are you trying to say I need to start doing MMA?
No, I don't think it's a requirement. It's just, in terms of admiration or respect.
Yeah.
I can look at a guy who maybe never, won the biggest tournament in the world, but if he's out there fighting, like a Gary Tonin, he's never won Abu Dhabi. I think he's one of the most popular and well-respected guys in the sport. He's crazy too, right? He's, as opposed to wacky, but he's awesome. And I think he has a respect and a likability. Why? Because he's like going out and entertaining people in MMA. Well, he entertains no matter where he is, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not to take away anything from the accomplishment of people who won, worlds once or 10 times. Like those guys are amazing. But did you fight? That's what it always kind of boils down to. Did you fight?
If a technique works in MMA, it does.
It may not work. It may not work in sports jiu-jitsu because why? Because I can put you in 50-50 for 10 minutes.
50-50 works pretty well in MMA. Ryan Hall.
Yeah, if you're Ryan Hall.
Ryan Hall. Just be Ryan
well, yeah,
Hall.
if you're Ryan Hall or the Meows or
Yeah.
Yeah, those guys would all. I think those guys would all be really good. It's not to say like, oh, they suck because they don't fight. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying like the guys who fight are at the top.
So would you say that the only legitimate jiu-jitsu techniques, or might you be able to argue that the techniques that show up in MMA are more legitimate than techniques that don't show up in MMA matches? Like you can tell the quality of a technique based on where it appears.
I think that if it depends on what your focus is. I'm not saying that my focus is the right or only one. It's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying this is me, right? And people like me. So for me, jiu-jitsu has always been about effectiveness, right? Will it work in a fight? Will it work against a bigger person? Will it work when you're tired? Will it work? You know what I mean? Like these things. But will it work when you're on the bottom, the person's really big, and you can't just push them off? So for me, if I see something that's working in an MMA fight, I'm like, okay, that's a legit thing. That guy's trying to take your head off.
Yeah.
He's doing or she's doing everything they can to kill you, right? Or disable you at least, render you unconscious. If you can do this to that person who's highly trained, that's probably a pretty good technique. So, and the types of techniques that work really well at MMA shouldn't really come as any surprise. I don't think they're really that much different than techniques that work in, rear naked chokes. They work really well in MMA.
right? I mean, that's high percentage no matter
Yeah.
where you are. If you get to someone's back and you're able to sting to choke, you're gonna win. You're gonna win unless you've got some magic. You know, some people have magic.
But you could also, I mean, you've pointed out that like when there are rules, it doesn't necessarily represent what would actually occur into a fight. So there's still this like
Yes.
separation
Yeah.
from reality.
Which is why I'm saying, right, like the training for MMA is different than the training for a police officer. It's different than the training for a 13-year-old or 10-year-old kid who wants to do sport jiu-jitsu because they think it's fun.
Mhm.
All of those things are legitimate. Like, I'm not saying there's one thing at the top, right?
Is that a pyramid? That was a pyramid.
At the pyramid, you know, I say, you know, like, you can have respect. I have respect for everybody, but I think, you know, the pinnacle is really fighting because that's the toughest test.
Yeah.
You know, that's where the competition is the fiercest, or at least you have the most risk of, you know, you're risking the most, right? And I admire those people who walk in the ring voluntarily and fight, you know, for everyone's entertainment and the glory of fighting.
Yeah.
But if you're, yeah, right, if you're a 10-year-old kid and you just love to do, you know, gi, point jiu-jitsu, then, you know, the techniques you're going to learn if you want to be successful at gi jiu-jitsu as a 10-year-old or a 30 are going to be very different than what you learn as you know, jiu-jitsu nerds who just love to do jiu-jitsu for the fun of doing jiu-jitsu and the love of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you know, we learn a lot of things and do a lot of things that you can't do successfully or at least consistently on, you know, in a tournament.
There is a nice freedom to that.
And yeah, I mean, and a lot of, I think a lot of, you know, why jiu-jitsu is so fertile and why it continues to grow in a sense is because it can accommodate all these different purposes.
Yeah.
You know, hey, if you want to be a fighter, there's something there. But I also think that sometimes when you go a little too far, you might lose a little touch with that, with those things. That why do we do it, or why does this make sense? You know, is this realistic? You know, oh, we have grips here, we have gis, or you know, we have rules, or you know, these things like don't get it twisted. You know, just because it works in this context doesn't necessarily means it works in this other one. And that goes for the same thing for the MMA fighters.
Yeah.
Yeah, punching somebody or kicking them in the face can get you out of a submission. In a fight,
Do that in the streets, yo. You want to grab your jock.
I mean, I don't know.
That wouldn't work in reality.
leave us if you guys are, you know, we have 72 subscribers and I expect more. Leave us a comment in the about what you think about anything we've talked about today. I'd love to hear what the people have to say.
Oh, tomorrow can we talk about how learning jujitsu and DNA replication are similar?
I mean, that's all you. I don't know anything about DNA and I barely know anything about jiu-jitsu.
Nice.
So-
Transcription.
You know what? I wanted to try one thing.
Uh-huh.
Can I try one thing?
What do you got?
Have you heard about the buggy choke?
Yeah.
Do you know the buggy choke?
Someone tried it on me the other day.
Did it not work? I wanted to try it.
Yeah, you can do it.
Can I do it?
Uh-huh.
So if you guys want to see the buggy choke in action, one of the Rotolo, I forgot.
Cade.
Was it
I
Cade?
think so.
He hit it in combat jiu-jitsu
Mhm.
this weekend in the finals. So the guy he did it to was not a scrub. And then I was watching training film, and I don't know if it was 100%, but it looked like Josh Hinger was going pretty hard.
Yeah.
And he hit it on Josh Hinger in training.
Wow.
I don't know if it's legit, because, you know, Josh Hinger is a world champion. He's really good. I don't know if he just let him.
He doesn't let.
I don't think he let
doesn't
him.
let
It
things
didn't
happen.
look like he let
He
him.
doesn't let things happen.
But, I mean, I was impressed. So anyway, I'm not sure I'm going to do this correctly.
Good job, Kate.
I mean, I was impressed. But, so, I don't know if I can even do this with my leg.
You know what this arm here?
I think it was the other way. I think they were here. Yes. And what did he do? He came here.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this is my bad leg.
You want to do the other side?
Yeah, let's do the other side.
Rotate.
Is that this way?
And then
Let's see. So you're here. You got, what did you get? Here?
I think my head needs to be on this side.
Oh, he got under. Okay, like this. All right, and then he locked his legs. Oh. And then he squeezed. Wait. Oh, and then you know what his problem is? I can't reach my hand. There we go. It really helps to have long arms because I was here like this, and then I had to and then here, and then I was like, you guys saw me, but you couldn't see me. My fingers were like that 10-finger grip. If you could do, you're gonna be able to do like a really good grip. It helps to be like Cade is super
Yeah, he's limmy.
limmy. So it's one of those things where the guy is gonna be here and he's gonna want to like kind of grind on you, right? Like this is where it's like this is where I'm in the most danger. Yes. Oh.
Ooh, was that your shoulder?
Yeah. How's that?
Move my neck.
I think my
It's weird.
face.
Oh yeah.
Let's do it one more time and let's see if I can get. Let's do it without my. I mean, I just don't.
It's tight.
It's tight.
Yeah.
There's no way out either.
Once it's in, it's tough. Can I show you?
Because your arm is stuck underneath. Like, so if we're here, can you do it here? Like, can you
I can do it. I have an triangle here.
from the bottom?
Yeah.
Same way?
Well, I usually.
Oh, no, but just stay down. Oh, I guess okay. Yeah. So that makes sense.
So that's yeah.
So I wouldn't. So what I would do is I'd be here and here,
And then.
and like, and would you do it?
Maybe. No, that won't work. This is. I think you can.
Do I need my arm in? It's like an arm. It's like a triangle, right?
I think the ways I've done similar things are here, where you're here.
Yeah, I do this one.
And then
Yep.
you come underneath. And maybe you can do this one. But that's.
No, that's not gonna work.
I don't like this one.
If my mouth is not set, my teeth aren't set, I might tap because of the grind on my jaw. But if my teeth are set, you're not gonna. I don't think.
Sometimes there's a nice turnover you can do where.
Like here?
You
Yeah, I
take
mean-
this arm out. And then you
Yep,
come over.
I do these.
I like to grab this thigh and then push their head down. Is that okay?
Yeah. Whoa. That is a big man move. So
There was
Mikey,
technique in there.
I think if you do some more stretching, you can probably get that. I need you one more time. So we're here, locks up, right? You're locking me up. No, like here, yeah. So come in, and then it's almost like a, what do they call it? The lockdown? Not the lockdown.
Reverse triangle?
No,
Ducks.
what's it called? Not the twister. There's a 10th planet, like guard. I'm talking about
Rubber.
rubber guard. Kind of like a rubber guard. Man, I used to be able to actually get in here and then get here. That doesn't really feel like it would be that tight, but it's pretty tight.
I think whenever I get caught with that, it's because I didn't respect it early enough. And then
Yeah.
like they're just like, this idiot grabbing my head, and then suddenly like your arm's in there, and
It's one of those things where you know what he set it up with? He did a really strong bridge. So Hanger had him in the training session. Hanger had him in a really strong cross side, and he wasn't moving.
Yeah.
And so Cade like really bridged hard, and Hanger had to push down instead of moving. He kind of like
Invested.
and then that's when, as they got to the bottom, he just slapped on the. And it's one of those things where the person where he comes over his head, like when that arm comes over,
Yeah.
right? Like
You can break the posture down.
it's you're controlling. Like here,
Yeah.
this is. Can you get out now? For so if you try to get out,
It's risky because you're in head arm triangle
Yes.
position. If I can break this through,
yeah.
right? So.
So the thing is, right now, like my arm is not in a good position, right? Because I
Yeah.
went under. I
And
went
like-
around.
And I'm here.
Yes.
If you can break me down.
But here,
Once I broke
look.
it down, even if I drive in, that's not gonna be as good.
Yeah.
Because
Sorry. You're actually going deeper into the choke
Yeah.
because you're going forward instead of before you were able to get up.
Yeah. Before like driving in was okay because like I had a little bit of separation, but if you can break that posture down.
And then I'm reinforcing it with this, right? Because you're not gonna it's gonna be hard to break through this because it's not just my leg anymore.
You're like.
Before initially I did that.
Yes.
That did not feel good.
Yeah.
That's not tight enough. So here.
Sometimes that doesn't feel good on my shoulder. I think that's why it popped, but it didn't hurt, so it's fine. But it's a little tight, doing that or getting that angle. But
That is
it's tight. Oh my gosh.
that is a sweet. That's one of those submissions, like a mean submission.
Yeah.
Where you think you see somebody doing it and you're like, oh, that guy's he's just doing it on somebody he's just clowning. But
Yeah.
I think that's one of those that will work if you want to commit or overcommit to
It's
the
risk.
cross side with that head and arm.
It's just you need to be aware as a person doing it that if you relax too much, they could head on track.
It's, yeah.
Well,
It's one of those where you're on the bottom, you're probably losing,
yeah.
and you can slap it on, especially if you're long and you're flexible.
Yeah, but the problem with it is
If you have to check your hip, the side of hip you need to be on, it's not for you, but
yeah, if the issue I have with it, not that it is bad or anything, but it's just that like if it doesn't work, you're basically committing the person even deeper into side control. You've made no space, you've made no progress towards an escape. But if it works, it's great, right? You win. But
oh, Cameron's here. Let's see. Oh wait, let me just. I don't know why I
my
can't.
voice. Oh my god. Hi Cameron, thanks for watching. I appreciate it.
I don't know how to turn the sound off here. Hold on, just be quiet for a second.
Okay.
Shh. Always restomp the groin. Good point. The bunny. No, buggy. I think it's buggy choke. Yeah, I did see the bet. The 500. Did you see the bet that Lachlan? 500K to Gordon's, because you know Gordon's famous for being like, I'll bet you 10,000 to your 1,000. So I think that's just Lachlan. I don't think that they're actually. No one's going to get tested because I don't think that bet will ever be, actually.
Wait, the bet
Oh.
is just who's gonna pass this drug test?
What he said was, well, the way it was like he said, I'll bet you 500K. And first of all, kudos to Lachlan Giles for having 500K with which to bet.
Oh, how would he not?
I mean, okay. But the bet was that if Gordon accepts the bet, and it's 5K to 500K, that he will go immediately to whatever the testing, ASADA or whatever, and get tested and post the results. And if it's negative, then he wins the 5K. And if it's positive, then Gordon gets the 500K.
That's funny. That's no
Because Gordon
responsibility.
accused Lachlan of juicing.
Man,
He said, right, so he took a picture of Lachlan, I don't know how many years ago, a couple of years ago,
Mhm.
and then a picture now, and it looks like Lachlan actually has put on a few pounds. And he was like, basically like, yeah, right, in your 30s you were able to do that naturally. And Lachlan was like, here, look at my old pictures of like when I was 20, and he's like totally yoked back
Yeah.
then. So it's like, you can see this,
he had the
he
infrastructure
always
for it.
had the genetics, to put on the muscle. It's not like,
Well,
but who knows? Maybe he was juiced way back in his 20s. I don't know.
I mean, if you had juice, let's say you juiced when he was in his teens, would he not be allowed to make those claims now? Like, how much of a space between the
I
juicing?
think if you've ever juiced, you can't criticize anybody for doing any juice.
I went through puberty once. Does that count?
For being on the juice, on the sauce.
Does that is an equivalent, right? You know?
That's naturally occurring. Oh, unless you did some sort of like transgender thing. I mean, if you did that, I'm not here to judge.
I don't think so. Not on purpose.
It's just an interesting thing to me that Gordon. First of all, that Gordon even came out to like respond to that is fascinating to me. Here's my theory, though. Here's my theory. So I remember them talking about having some sort of match, like a no-gi match.
Like
And
an
I-
exhibition?
Yeah, like whatever, like a
Okay.
challenge match, and nobody wants to see a friendly rolling match. So my theory,
They're hyping it up.
they're starting to hype up a match.
That's fun.
Which, I mean, they're I think considered to be two of the best
Yeah.
leg lockers.
And it's like you get to finally see Natty versus Juice.
But I mean, Gordon already beat him at Abu Dhabi.
Yeah, but like now we get to see it as the narrative.
Yeah.
Natty versus Juice.
I don't put.
It's the underdog story.
I guess.
It's gonna be great.
I guess.
I love it already.
It makes a lot more sense, right? Like, why would Lachlan is like, I think,
They're chill.
considered one of the nicest people.
Yeah.
He's friends with, like a longtime friends with Craig, who's,
Also
part
chill.
of Death Squad now, super chill.
Yeah.
I actually think that this is all just a premeditated scheme to
That
hype
makes-
a match.
That makes me feel better.
Because otherwise, it doesn't make sense that Lachlan would even pick this fight.
It's weird, but
You know?
I don't know. Maybe he's just cooped up and bored. Quarantine's getting to him. And he just
I think
wants
he's
to-
headed on his way to Puerto Rico, and
That'd be awesome. Do you think they're gonna have a Puerto Rican kumite? Like just start inviting
almost
people over there?
certainly.
It'd be so fun.
I mean, I think that's the whole point of this whole enterprise. They just posted pictures of like everybody down in Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, everyone loves Puerto Rico until the first hurricane hits, and then it's not so great. But it is beautiful.
Yeah.
It is a beautiful place. So,
That's awesome.
I think it'll be interesting to see what actually you're doing down there. Like they call it a pro camp.
Yeah.
I guess they're trying to get rid of all the hobbyists, you know, the annoying people that they have to teach every
And
day.
start like specializing.
And just
people.
like being 100%. I don't know how much more they can dominate.
Yeah.
You know, I guess once you get past Gordon, you know, Gary I think can go toe to toe with anybody, but he hasn't won. He hasn't beaten JT Torres.
Yeah.
You know,
Can we just make it like Pokemon where Puerto Rico's like the end stage Elite Four? Once you beat all these gyms, you go to Atos, if you can beat Andre, you get a badge. You go up to Henzo's, you beat Henzo, you get a badge.
I
You go
guess I don't know. I mean,
Go down to Coconut Creek, you beat a bunch of top team guys, you get a badge. And then once you have 8 badges, you go to Puerto Rico and you get to fight Gary and
that would be
Gordon.
cool.
Let's do that. Can we do that?
I mean, call them. I'm sure they would be down for it. It'd be awesome.
Put a system, like an international ongoing jiu-jitsu tournament.
Why not?
That'd be great.
Why not?
Let's do it. Someone call me and help me with this idea.
I mean,
Perfect.
all you need is a lot of money.
Yes. Step 1, please. All right.
It would be interesting to see if they, you know, Abu Dhabi has expanded a lot in terms of the gi tournaments, and they have their own world championships, and they have international Grand Prix and tournaments, you know, outside and independent of. They have never really built out a no-gi, you know, ADCC league.
Wasn't that trials? I thought that was trials.
Well, it's not trials because trials are only for qualifying. Right? So it's, what I'm saying is, you know, like IBJJF has 4 major events, right? Worlds, Europeans, Pans, what's the one I'm forgetting?
Asia?
Is there an Asian chip? There's a chip. And Brazilian nationals.
Oh,
That's, I think these are the four majors. And then there's a million minors, and you have to go through and get all your, if you're a black belt, brown belt, you gotta go back and qualify
All the
for
opens.
points and do the opens. But once you win, I think you don't have to qualify for it for another 2 years or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, or once you get your points, I think they're good for a certain amount of time. Abu Dhabi is not like that. I mean, if you place, you know, you're gonna get invited back usually.
Yeah.
If you didn't place, if you fought well, you're probably going to get back. And otherwise, you're going to do the qualifications. But they don't. What I mean is, they have these qualifiers or trials all over the world. But it's not like there's a tournament every 2 months, you know, in different parts of the world, just under the Abu Dhabi rule set.
Yeah.
And
Because with IBJJF, you have guys who will hop from like East Coast, West Coast, just like following where all the opens are, and then you'll have like a group of basically like a traveling consistent group who goes and meets and
I mean, look,
fights everywhere.
if no-gi jiu-jitsu is going in the direction, I think it always has been, of like Abu Dhabi is going to be the centerpiece of no-gi jiu-jitsu. I think at some point you should have, that's a natural market to have tournaments
Yeah.
designed specifically, like it's not no-gi IBJJF.
But doesn't it water down the brand a little bit?
I don't think so, in the sense that if you think of it as, look, if you want to go to Abu Dhabi, if that's really the Olympics and you want to go to it, then you should be competing under that rule set in multiple tournaments throughout the year, right? So, and you can do it at belt levels, right? Like,
Yeah.
instead of having everyone show up at the trials, right? They don't have any rules about who can go to the trials.
Mm.
I think they're not even an age rule, right? Like Nicky Ryan was like 14 or 15 the first time he went in.
Yeah.
And, you know, the Rotolos were young. Who else was young? I mean, there were a bunch of minors that are out there doing great. You know, why not have, you know, a youth division
Don't they have
where you're not mixing them in with like Josh Hinger or, you know what I mean? Like, that's kind of cool in a way, but I mean, it's not realistic to have 200 people, 99 of whom have 0 chance of getting past the
I
first
think
round.
that's awesome.
No, it's cool, but I think I mean, the last qualifiers was a little ridiculous,
Yeah.
where they had like,
I mean, it is growing to
300
a point
people.
where it's like, are you really sure that you got the best of the best? Because you have so many people and it's like single elimination, right?
true.
So it's
Yeah.
a
If
lot of
somebody's
it's
having a
like-
bad day,
bad
or
day.
somebody gets lucky or has a great day. I mean, I think it would be cool, and I think the market is there for.
That's what I was gonna say.
What?
Aren't there tournaments who do follow Abu Dhabi rule sets and who just aren't associated with Abu Dhabi?
That's probably true.
Or it's like the private market is filling in that gap because
But you know, the thing is though, is that you know, they always make a big deal about the only people who really understand the Abu Dhabi rules are the Abu Dhabi refs. There's all these like unwritten, we talked about rules before, but there are all these like weird, like how they judge points and if they are to give points and, you know, all these things. So there's this mystique about the rules.
Yeah.
And only some people, you have to go to the rules meeting for that event in order to really understand like what they're doing.
I mean, it seems to me like they're really highlighting that feeling of exclusivity,
Yes.
or like they're the premier group of grapplers. And this is the
That's
best.
true, but I think if you want to build it out into like a self-sufficient thing,
Higher.
then and to start like really honestly, like right now Noki has a whole slew of tournaments that all have various rules and differences and things like that. If you could have, you know, one organization at least that sets the rules and runs the tournaments, and they're super high quality. Because I know the Abu Dhabi World Tour, or whatever they call it, is super high quality. It's well run, it's televised. I mean, IBJJF is definitely caught up, but it's like a really first class type of production. And so if you could do that with Nogi, and then, you know, build it out and make it essentially the IBJJF for Nogi to get to Abu Dhabi, that would be a pretty good business opportunity. If I were just looking at that as a business opportunity and saying, hey, could you fill?
That's the nice thing about having the Sheiks run it, because their primary motivation for putting on these tournaments isn't necessarily to make money.
Not to make money.
And
They have enough of that already.
Yeah, and I like that. That's really cool, because then you can focus on just having really big, juiced up guys fighting each other, and that's what it's all about.
Bringing it full circle. Full circle. Hey, look, I mean, I'm not sure I would be opposed to like a non-natural league of
It'd be cool.
whatever, extraordinary gentlemen.
I think 5 minutes in, there should be a single knife that drops into the middle of the arena.
Yeah.
And then, you know, whatever happens, happens.
The lights go out.
Yeah, just tell them beforehand so it's not unfair, you know.
Right. It's gonna at some point there will be a knife, a weapon.
Like 5 minutes, just, you know, we'll drop the knife. If you don't want to keep going, just tap out. It's fine. You know, you don't have to continue during the knife time, but
This is the type of thing we talk about. Anyway, thank you, Cameron, for tuning in.
yeah, thank you.
Hey, more people. Like I said, I put in an email today actually that we're going to do giveaways and prizes, and there'll be rash guards and gis and private lessons and annual memberships.
Yeah.
More information on that soon.
Soon,
Stay tuned.
when someone feels like writing it out.
I'll write it out. All right. Thanks to everybody.